Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody's doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. As always, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to God for that. Well, as you can see, I'm in a different place, different surrounding. You don't see the canvas up on the wall. I'm actually at the compound, I would call it, of Andrew and Tristan Tate. I've been trying to get here for a long time. Some of you know I had a little issue with the passport. We got that resolved. And I've been in touch with the Tates for quite some time now. You know, I've been a big supporter of what's going on with them in Romania. And, you know, there's a lot of back and forth about this. But I am of the belief, people, that you are innocent until proven guilty. I happen to know things a little bit differently than most people online. And I'm hoping this is going to work out the way it should. And all this gets cleared up in court for both of these young men. And very excited to sit down with Andrew. You know, some people have said to me, because I've been talking about this, you know, Michael, why would you sit down with Andrew? And my response to that, well, why would Andrew sit down with me? I mean, we both have our things in our past. We both have allegations. And, you know, I have a 30-year history now that I think things have been resolved. Andrew's a lot younger than I am. We happen to think a lot alike about a lot of things. And I think what you're going to find out in this conversation, we're going to talk about things, all this misogyny stuff, you know, there's a lot of allegations out there, but people, you need to remember something. Allegations are just that. Until there's proof, until something happens, until there's a conviction, and even then, it may not be right. You know, we live in a world today where unfortunately, you know, you're guilty until proven innocent. And I'm sorry, but I don't ascribe to that. I mean, I've been through it in my life, and I'm not saying that people don't deserve to have consequences. If they do something wrong, we agree with that. But, you know, I like to listen, and I judge people after hearing everything and knowing them myself. And we have a lot of things we're going to talk about. Andrew is never at a loss for words, and you're going to probably see me listen because I want to hear some of the things that he has to say about a lot of different issues. But I can say I'm excited to be here, excited to sit down with both Andrew and Tristan today. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. A lot of my followers have been saying, Michael, when is it going to happen? Well, it's going to happen now. So looking forward to it. And Andrew doesn't need any introduction. I think he's the most watched guy, the biggest influencer, one of the biggest influencers, certainly right at the top on all of social media. And he's there for a reason, people. And I think you're going to find through this conversation that there's a lot of misgivings about him that are just not true, just not true. And that's why I chose to be here. So, you know, without getting any further, I'm sure this is going to be probably 2 or 3 parts because neither of us have a lack for words. But here we go. My guest, Andrew Tate. So, Andrew, I honestly didn't think I was going to make it here this time. You know, to use your phrase, the Matrix got me for a while.
You told me something happened. What happened?
You know, it's unbelievable. I got this tour going on in the UK. We're going in March. And because I was coming to Dubai first, I had to have 6 months left on my passport.
Yep.
And my passport actually expired in June. So Ella's telling me, go get your passport done. I said, I'll do it when I get back. She says, you got to do it right away. You can't get an appointment there. I make a connection. I get an appointment on a Monday.
Yeah.
I'm leaving Tuesday,
yeah.
Tuesday night, right? Go there Monday, give them the money, go through the computer, everything's fine. I go back Tuesday. Mr. Franzese, we're sorry, we can't give you your passport. I said, why not? Department of Treasury has put a hold on it. I said, Department of Treasury? So they said, you got to call them up. I said, call the Department of Treasury? This is you. It'll take 6 months to even get through to them. Long story short, what I find out is somebody puts a fraudulent tax return, filed a fraudulent tax return for 2023. Wasn't even due yet. And I never file on time anyway. I'm always 4 months late. And claimed I made $4,000 and I needed a $100 return, right? So the IRS looks at it and said, this is fraudulent. They don't process it, but they post it. So overnight, when I go to try to get my passport, goes over the computer, whatever, they stop me, right? So when I find this out, I said, well, who posted this? You know, who filed it? You can file it e-file. They said, well, we can't tell you because it's under investigation. They said, but you're fortunate. You got to thank us. They said, thank you for what? Had we processed it, they would have put a warrant out for your arrest and locked you up at the passport office. This is what they tell me, right? So right now, I still can't get a copy of it. They won't give it to me. They say it's under investigation. Somebody did it.
Yeah.
Somebody just put it in there. But normally it would take 4 to 6 months to get this done. Fortunately, I was able to get it done in a month. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Well, the really interesting question is the person who did this, do they even have a passport? Are they even a citizen? Who knows anymore? We've entered a new era of insanity where these kind of things can happen, and we don't even know who did it. They may not have a social security number. This recently in London, there was I can't remember if it was a stabbing or an acid attack. Something heinous happened in London only a month or a month and a half ago to a little girl. And they were talking about how they couldn't find the guy. And London has the most CCTV in the world. And as much as I believe the UK is a failed society, the Met Police are pretty good at wrapping up the violent people pretty quickly. They do respond and find them. It's unfortunate they only come after the event. You'll get stabbed. But they might catch the guy once you're dead, which is kind of nice. But they couldn't find this person who did this extremely heinous crime. And I made the very obvious point. The only reason they cannot find somebody who did something so heinous in the middle of the day in the middle of a city like London is because they have no idea who this person is. He has no social media, no passport, no bank cards, no footprint. He came on a boat. He turned up. He murdered a native. And he's vanished because who knows it? Who is he? You have a grainy CCTV image and absolutely nothing else. So, I mean, not maybe. I've been called it a few times. It must be semi-true conspiracy theorist. But when you tell me things like this, just it sounds like people trying to game the system. And who are these people? Do they even have American passports or citizenships or any interest in the country at all? Or are they just there to exploit whatever they can exploit?
Who knows? But I don't know how the immigration system is here. I know it's pretty bad in the UK, but you got to see how it is in America. We have probably 15 million people that have come into the country. And, I spoke recently to 850 Border Patrol agents in Texas.
Yep.
And they told me, Michael, you have no idea. We have no idea who's coming into this country. We don't know how many have gotten away. We don't know how much drugs is coming in. They have no idea.
How much human trafficking is taking place.
Human trafficking, the whole bit.
Yeah, it's scary. And it's scary, one, because of the situation, but it's really scary when you understand it's by design. I don't believe it's an accident. You don't have to have any degree of a functioning brain to understand that a nation requires a border. You can't sit and believe you have a nation without a border.
It's not a nation at that point.
It's not a nation anymore.
Right.
So these people must be doing it by design. Then you have to go deeper down the rabbit hole. Why are they trying to do this? And I see these little hints in the media. You see things and they say, Trump might lose the election because of the undocumented voters. And I sit and think, are these people really busting their way into America and then urgently trying to find a way to vote? Or are they just letting them in so they can use that as a scam, make up the votes themselves? Don't put me in jail. But they'll just say, this is the undocumented vote. And they'll just print it and write it themselves, and they'll just blame them. These people probably don't even need to vote. They're just the scapegoat for the scamming of the election. That's what I think they're doing it for.
I've been saying this for months. There's only one reason, and this is totally political. They're letting them into the country, and that's to influence the voting.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
They want to turn the entire country blue, the entire country progressive.
Yep.
They never want to get out of power.
It's so funny because you look at the world, and my recent stint has me looking at the world quite hard, right? Because when you go to a jail or when you go to a court or a legal process in a country that's not your native country, you start to feel extremely patriotic. It's weird because I left the UK 10 years ago and I've been in Romania for a very long time. But when you're standing in a Romanian court and there's a Romanian national anthem and a Romanian symbol and everyone's talking in Romanian and you're just standing there like, I don't stand up.
You don't speak Romanian.
No, I don't speak Romanian. I don't have a clue what's being said. It's just like, jail. You're like,
right.
What? So you kind of feel patriotic. And then I'm looking at my host nations and I'm trying to looking at the world and trying to find somewhere I can feel home again, because I felt home here until this happened to me. We can go deeper down the rabbit hole as to whether America actually did this to me by proxy. That's another question. But you're looking at things and I see countries like Russia, or I see countries where people can be proud of their leadership and proud of their nation. And I'm truly jealous. I'm heartbroken when I see young Russian men who believe in Putin and believe in Russia and believe in the country. That must be such a beautiful feeling. I can't be patriotic like I want to be because our leadership is garbage. They're throwing the country down the drain. They're doing it on purpose. And you have to look at who you can't criticize, because I don't truly believe freedom of speech exists anywhere. There's this idea that America has freedom of speech. That's a lie. Nowhere in the world has freedom of speech. There's always a class of people you cannot criticize. You can't go to Russia and criticize Putin. You can't live in Saudi and criticize the king or Islam. In America, you can't criticize trans, George Floyd, all this other garbage. And I'm like, well, if every single country on earth is going to have these taboo subjects, At least if you're not criticizing the leader who you believe has a national interest in improving the country.
The Tate Franzese sit-down that we bring you today was sabotaged by Matrix attacks. Days before the meeting with Andrew Tate, Michael Franzese's passport was confiscated by the US government. That same week, Andrew and Tristan Tate were rearrested by the authorities in Romania. Andrew and Michael have overcome all the obstacles to make this sit-down happen. As a consequence of the Matrix attack, Michael's UK tour was moved from March to May. If you are watching this podcast in the UK in May, please come to the tour to show your support for Michael against his struggle versus the deep state. Tickets are on Eventbrite. Link is in the description box below this video. Michael is touring 8 of the major UK cities. I'm hosting. Hope to see some of you there.
That's okay. You may not agree with everything your leader does, but if you know he's trying to help the country, you can be like, okay, but what are the LGBTQ and George Floyd doing to benefit America? These are the people who are off limits to criticism. I'm not allowed to say I don't believe they're acting the right way. Otherwise, I'm going to be punished in some way. And they don't benefit the country in any way at all, ever.
Not only do they not benefit the country, but they're in such a minority, and yet our leadership now panders to them like they're the most important people in the world.
Yep.
I don't get it. I really don't get it. That's, and I try to understand what their motive is on this. I can't understand it.
I think their motive is primarily to just damage society at every level. I think, and once again, not to be pessimistic, but not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I believe they've come to the conclusion that the American experiment is on its way out. The empire is falling across the next 50 to 60 years. They want to enrich themselves as much as possible, like a typical crypto pump and dump or stock Ponzi scheme. And they're trying to divide society to the point where we don't realize what they're doing and demasculinize as many men as possible so we don't resist what they're doing. And they find any agenda they can to purport which will damage our capability of resisting it. So they're going to come along and do all this garbage. I did a podcast recently, and I was talking about trans swimmers in female sports. And we were talking about how ridiculous it all is. And after about an hour in, I was like, the truly upsetting thing is that they've managed to convince some of the smartest, most eloquent, most interesting people on the planet who have podcasts to sit down and discuss whether a man should be allowed to swim with women. We're not talking about the fact that the fiat currency is a scam, that the judicial system's a scam, that the elections are a scam. We're talking about some swimmer with male genitalia destroying female swimmers. That's what they want, because they've put up such a smokescreen of garbage that we're sitting here trying to go through the garbage. And the only reason we have to do that is because there is a proportion of the population who are so slave-minded. They're slave-minded. Mm-hmm. They will believe anything they are told, anything they are said. So you end up having to argue against, like you said, this very vocal minority of 15% of whoever they are who truly believe that a man with a wig is a woman. And while we do that, they just plunder until it all explodes. And it's the patriot in me is heartbroken. It really makes me sad.
Well, I agree. And the hypocrisy in all of that is we have a country that's supposed to be standing strongly for women's rights.
Yeah.
Until you get a trans involved, and then you don't hear anything about the women anymore.
Absolutely.
And it's so absurd.
Yep.
A man cannot compete with a woman.
Yep.
Shouldn't compete with a woman. A woman can't compete with him in sports like that. It's a known fact, but yet they're forcing it on everybody there. And it's, what gets me, Andrew, more than anything? Listen, I was on the street. I was a gangster for 20 years. I make no bones about it. That's who I was. But that's who I was. I admit to it. Yeah. It's who I was. The hypocrisy in these people right now is what gets me more than anything. They're such frauds and they're such liars. They get up there, and you know what would get me? Politicians get up there now daily, a daily basis. They had a thing, I read an article. In 17 minutes, Biden got on the air and lied 15 times. They fact-check him. 15 lies in 17 minutes. And you talk to people about that, and they say, well, it's politics. I said, it's not politics. It's lying.
Yep.
If your partner lies to you once, maybe twice, third time, fourth time, you're done.
100%.
These guys lie to you every single day, and you support it. You say it's politics. It's not. It's lying. And the worst part about it, they lie to the detriment of the people that they're supposed to be benefiting.
Yep.
And that's why I've been ranting and raving about it. I almost lost my tour in the United Kingdom because of this whole thing. I have to believe that I've been very vocal, like you, speaking up for what we think is right.
Yep.
and they're coming after you for it. That's the bottom line.
Well, absolutely, because your ability to speak freely is directly correlated to your insignificance.
Yeah.
You can talk if nobody listens.
Yeah.
People start to listen, you have to be careful what you say.
Exactly.
And then they'll come along and say, oh, this is a free country. Yeah, you can say what you want. And then they'll attack you anyway if you say things they don't like. The free speech psyop. Well, it's very interesting what you said about lying in politics. I want to talk about that in a second. But the free speech psyop is interesting because America as a country is unified by two things. One is money, and two is this idea of freedom, which doesn't truly exist, I believe. But other nations may be unified by a language or a color or a flag or a national interest, whatever. But America is unified by the idea that most people believe they can get rich one day, and they're unified by this idea that they are freer than everybody else. So I think to keep this scam alive, they have to allow people to do stupid things they can't do in other places. Because you can't truly criticize from a vocal platform the leadership without getting wrecked. That's the same in every country in the world. America's no better. So to pretend they're better than a country like Saudi or Russia, they'll say, but you can change your name and put a wig on. So we're free.
Yeah.
So they'll allow you to do insignificant garbage, but they won't allow you to stand up and do anything that's important. And then they'll say, but we're free because look at this garbage you can do that nobody wants to do anyway, unless they're psyoped into it. It's really interesting what you said about politics and liars. That's the ultimate slave mind. When you say people go, it's politics. They've got us to a point now where we think it's perfectly acceptable and perfectly normal for the people that we hire to represent us to just lie the entire time.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's fraud, isn't it? I don't know. You're representing my constituency and you vote against our interests every single time.
100% fraud. 100%. Listen, and again, some people say, well, Michael, you were in a mob. I said, exactly. But I didn't pretend to be, fighting for the people.
Yeah.
We were fighting for ourselves at that point in time.
Yeah.
However, I will tell you this. We treated people better than they treat us.
100%.
100%. Our communities were safe. Our neighborhoods were safe. We didn't prey on innocent people.
Yeah.
These people... Okay, they lie, they get on a campaign, they say this and that, and they get in the office, they totally reverse themselves to the detriment of the people that put them in office. And to me, there's nothing worse than that, Andrew. Nothing worse.
I agree. And then the only way this makes sense is if you look at the political landscape and you understand who they actually work for. Because people say, why are they doing this? I hear often people say, politicians, they're just stupid. If they're so stupid, how come they're in charge of you?
Yeah, they're not stupid.
They're not stupid. You think they work for you. That's your confusion. You think they represent you. And you're like, why are they doing all these things? That's against my interest. Because you're not their concern. They work for somebody else.
Exactly.
And they're passing laws for their interest. The people who make rules to benefit the people who make the rules. They don't make the rules to benefit the common average person. I catch myself doing this. A lot of the things I talk about in the world and how I view things. And I'd really be interested in your input on this. Because I came from absolutely nothing and now I have a little bit of money. And I occasionally catch myself being elitist. Like if I meet somebody who I went to school with and we grew up in the same area and we've had the same amount of minutes of life and I managed to be monumentally successful and they can't pay their bills because they were too busy smoking weed, I don't feel sorry for them very much. I'm actually like, well, you're an idiot. You could have found a way out. You could have tried harder. There's always a way. You didn't try hard enough. And if you extrapolate that out, I'm somebody who was only poor 10 years ago. Imagine you're born into a banking dynasty. Imagine you're born into a lineage of people who have always been rich. Imagine how you're going to view the common man. Mm-hmm. They think we're cockroaches. They don't care about us. They have no concern for us on any level because they believe they're completely different. They're in a different class. They don't believe in nation states because they're globalist. They're above us in every way. They print the thing that we all slave around and run around for, money. So, of course, they have no concern for us. So when they get a politician in power and they get him to pass laws that are to our detriment, it doesn't cross their mind that that's not what they should do. For the same reason, I'll make a law or I'll make a decision in my house that will be detriment to the ants outside. I don't care. It's my house and it's their world. And this is the reality of it. And I don't know. I'm very interested in how that ties into your story with the mob and getting big and getting rich and getting famous. Did you ever get to a point where you're just like, you know what? You common people, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
You get to that point. Not that you don't want to talk to them, but, listen, we have a tendency to pity people and feel sorry for people. In our country, everybody has an opportunity to do something. There's no question about it. Yeah. And you got to look at somebody's past. If, like you said, they're laying around and they're waiting for somebody to do something for them and expecting something to happen, depending upon the government. Well, I don't have any pity for that. You know, I don't. I see so many people like yourself that started with nothing and made themselves successful, but they worked hard.
Yeah.
And they took advantage of the system when they could, which is what you're supposed to do. So, yeah, I mean, look, it's natural. You know,
Good. I had to check myself there.
No,
because,
you're okay there.
And another thing I think that's getting scary about the world, which is also an interesting thing, and perhaps this is a modern thing, I don't know, but I see a lot of these crimes and a lot of things happening, and I particularly pay attention to British crime because I feel more British than American. I spend most of my time there, and you see stabbings on trains and all of these crazy things happening every single day, shootings, and London's getting really bad. And I was talking to someone, and I said, we're at the point now where you almost just have to avoid broke people. And I'm not saying that in a horrible way. I'm saying you can't get on a train because there's someone on that train who can't pay their bills and is on the edge. That's just the reality of it. You can see it. Someone bumps into them and they just pull a blade and start stabbing people. You can't walk around in crowds. You can't go where there's huge gatherings because there ends up being a murder or a stabbing or a riot. It's getting to the point where you become more elitist because you're saying, well, I just need to avoid all of the people who don't have a lot of money, and I can avoid 99.9% of the world's problems, besides the government, because then they come for you.
Yeah.
But it's getting that way, and I don't feel like, you'll know better than me, that the world used to be that way. The common man would be a good person, and everything was fine, and they loved their family, and they had a degree of respect. But in certain towns in England, especially now, if you try and go anywhere and people aren't affluent, they've lost all sense of morality. They just think, oh, okay, well, it just becomes a free-for-all. And it's dangerous. It's getting more and more dangerous to be around or just do a common thing or a normal thing. Public transport, malls, anything. It's getting crazy out there.
Let me ask you a question. Is that, in your view, because there are no consequences for these people?
I think...
Or they've been minimized to a degree where they can get away with it?
That's certainly part of it. But I do believe that humans are intrinsically good. And I think that as we're divided further and further down the scale, which is what's happening, we just end up finding an enemy of some kind. I believe that when you remove the homogeny of society, whether it be race, religion, anything, when you have nothing at all to unify or bind people anymore, you add on the pressure of people not being able to pay their bills. You add on the pressure of people slowly realizing how unfair this world is and how unfair all the systems we're supposed to believe in are. I think there's just a lot of pressure on people to just... I don't think a lot of people can take pressure. You can talk from jail. We can talk about our jail. There's a lot of people who wake up and they say, let's take it this way. If you're an immigrant, let's say, and I don't know this, I'm just guessing, because I try and put myself in other people's positions, right? I try and pretend I'm them. If I was an immigrant and I grew up in a strictly Islamic country in a war zone, I'm going to be battle hardened because I've seen terrible things happen. And I'm going to have this view of the West as this utopia of beautiful women and money and all this other garbage, right? And I'm going to leave my land, and I'm going to go to England, and I'm going to realize that, one, I don't have really very much money. Other people may have some money, but I don't. Two, nobody really wants to give me a job because I don't have the work ethic they expect of me. Three, the women don't look at me as anything. So all these women who I have a bad view of, I view them as promiscuous because that's what I've seen in the music videos. Yeah. And I go up to them and I'm like, hey, and they're like, go away from me. That offends me. What do you mean go away? Why are you telling me to go away? Because I have this promiscuous view in my mind. You put me with 10 other guys who have no job, and we stand around on the corner all day. Like, how is this going to end anything other than crime? How is this going to end any other way? Because you get to a point, especially when you tell them the punishment for what happens to them is probably better than how they lived at home. You're going to say, well, get rich or die trying. And that's inside of every single man anyway. So when you add in the war zone and these other societal levels and these other psychological levels, they just don't care anymore. And how can you police that? How can you stop that? It's scary because the police come afterwards. They can't. The police come afterwards. That's the problem with all of this.
Well, you know what? In America now, they don't even want the police to come. I mean, it's gotten so bad. You know, people have said to me, they had this whole movement. I don't know if you remember one. It was defunding the police. And
genius idea.
You know, I said to them, I said, let me ask you a question. You know, Michael, what do you think about it? You know, you don't like the police. Just stop for a minute. Let me ask you a question. I'm on the street again, right? I'm doing what I'm doing. Rudy Giuliani, everybody knows him. He comes to me, he says, Michael, don't worry about it. You know, if we lock you up on a RICO case, you're going to get out right away. We're not going to give you any bail. No problem, you know? And don't worry about it. Maybe we'll give you a year in jail. Do you think I'm going to become a better person when I hear that, when I'm a criminal to begin with? Of course not.
Yeah.
When there's no consequences to your actions, you're going to go wild.
Yep.
And that's what they don't understand. You need law and order. And I think you believe that also. You've got to have law and order. There's no question about it. And when we're talking about this, and Andrew, I want to be clear with people. We're saying these things because we see something going wrong and we want to fix it. You know, when I go on a rant about our government, because I see them lying and I see them doing it to the detriment of the people, and that's why I get upset, because I happen to love my country.
Yep.
You know, I was born and raised there. Hey, you know, I did what I did, but I understand when I went to jail, I deserved to go to jail back then. You know, different than you.
Yep.
I deserved it when I went to jail. But I love my country. I got 7 kids. I got 7 grandkids. I want the country to be right.
Absolutely.
And when I see these people doing what they're doing and destroying United States is going down.
Yep.
I'm going to tell you something. If we get another 4 years of this Biden progressive stuff, we're in a lot of trouble.
I think it's the last chance.
It's it. I'm telling you, it's over.
It's the last chance. And it's really actually a very interesting argument because I completely agree with law and order and I completely agree with what you're saying. When I got out of jail, I was analyzing because I'm a very lucky person. God has blessed me with the experience of the Romanian judicial system. So I'm trying to understand other judicial systems around the world. And I was like, well, where is fair? And you start to go down the rabbit hole a bit. Mm-hmm. And you see that there's a lot of countries that have completely different ethoses when it comes to justice. So the American idea and the British idea, the Western idea of justice is innocent until proven guilty. That's the basic idea of justice. In countries like Romania, it's more, everyone goes to jail for a while. Everybody. If you're even remotely suspected of anything, everybody goes to jail for a while. And then we'll let you out. And then in the end, unless you've really done something, you're probably going to go home. So theirs is more scattergun. It's more, you looked in a car window? Well, you didn't break in, but you're looking in. And there was a car break-in yesterday. Tough. Jail.
It might be you.
Yeah, that's how they work. Yeah. Now, that obviously comes with detriment because you end up in jail with a bunch of people who perhaps don't belong in jail. But then I look at the society here. We're in the poorest country in Europe. I walk around with $1 million watch. I had a $5 million Bugatti. I'd park it on the street. Women walk home alone at night. It's so ridiculously safe because everyone fears the law. So perhaps it's detrimental, yes. And when you're in the cell, you're like, why am I here? But if you're not emotional about the fact you got caught up in it and you look around, you're like, well, society does function. People always talk about Japan and say, Japan's so safe, Japan's so great, Japan's amazing. Yeah, because there's a 99% conviction rate.
Yeah.
You telling me that innocent people aren't going to jail with a 99% conviction rate?
100%.
What's the even point of the court? The court doesn't exist. You turn up, I did that, yeah, jail. Yeah, jail. Same what happened to me. I went there and I said, TikTok, how can you human traffic someone on TikTok? TikTok doesn't even make money. Yeah, jail. They don't care. So you either fear the law or you have to fear the criminals. In the worst countries on earth, and perhaps we could say this is America currently, you have to fear both because the law will come for you if you're too big and you're telling too much truth. And the criminals will come after you if you're too rich. So you're living there with 2 enemies.
Right.
You know, that's the worst position to be in. At least in a country like Japan, you know, as long as I don't upset the law, I'll probably be okay.
Yeah, right. Let me tell you what happened to you. It's the same way that guys in organized crime, same thing happens. I'll tell you what happened. Normally a crime is committed and they go out and investigate and find out who the perpetrators are, right? Yeah. When you get to be somebody like yourself, there isn't a crime. They're investigating you, trying to figure out if you did anything wrong.
Correct.
It goes the opposite way.
Yeah.
And that's what they did with guys like us.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a bad guy. Let's figure out what he did.
Yeah.
So they start investigating, surveillance, all that, until they can nail you with something. That's what happened to you. And I've said this to many people. I said, you don't understand it. You don't know the system, whether you're Romania, US, or it's the same thing. When you get a high profile like that, this is what they do.
100%. They do not get a crime and try and find the name. They get a name and try and find the crime.
Exactly.
And most people have no idea how all of these things work. They have no idea how ridiculous the legal code is in every country. You don't know the law. You can live in America your whole life. You don't know the law. You may think you know the law, but you don't. And when you go to a court, it's all subjective. They can have a page of law and they can have someone in there at 10 a.m. who goes home and they can have someone in there at 11 a.m. who goes to jail and he can go to jail for 2 years and the next guy in at midday, he goes to jail for 4 years. Mm-hmm. It's all subjective.
Exactly.
And that's what's so scary about it. They tried to pin a bunch of crimes on us. They tried the financial route. They tried this, they tried that. They ended up going for what they went for because it's actually very uniquely human trafficking is one of the only crimes in the world where the victim can say they're not a victim. So with human trafficking, what they can do is come along and get a man and his wife, say you've human trafficked this woman because you, for financial gain, have convinced her to do something. And with me, it's the lover boy method. By being nice, not by physical coercion, not by beating. They're not even saying that. They're saying he used nice words to convince this girl to do something for financial gain, which I guess is every single employee boss relationship in the world. Yeah. Then when I say I didn't do it, when the girl herself says he didn't do it, they can still, the state can come after you. So you have a victim defending me defending myself, both of us on the same side of the stand, and the state trying to wreck you anyway, no matter what the victim says. Human trafficking is a unique crime in that regard. Yeah. And I guess they're doing it because they're saying that women can be brainwashed or whatever. I don't know how they came up with this idea, which is another interesting argument. You know what? As I go through this, it's so interesting because I try and highlight the hypocrisies in these things. I say, well, I have daughters. And maybe I'm crazy, but they're going to listen to me. And I'm going to have a big influence in their life. But we're now living in society in the West where we're saying women shouldn't have to listen to their fathers. Women shouldn't have to listen to their boyfriend. Women are sovereign individuals who can come to all their own conclusions because they're adults. Fine, I agree with that. But if that's true, you can't then say that they're so stupid that they'll do anything a man tells them to like this and that they can't tell their own point of view in court and that they're just lemmings. Which one is it?
Yeah, it's one or the other.
It's one or the other. So they're trying to push all of this feminism thing. But the second there's a man they don't like, they turn around and say, women are not sovereign. Women are stupid. They call me a misogynist. The courtroom is misogynistic. I'm sitting in a courtroom where a girl is saying he's never done anything to me. I asked him how to get famous on TikTok because he was famous on TikTok. They put this whole case together based on garbage and stupid YouTube videos he made, and they're trying to take him down. He's never hurt me. I have no problem with him. I don't want this case. I'm saying the same thing, and they're saying, no, she doesn't know what she's saying. Who's the misogynist? The state.
So this goes in front of a jury here also? How does it work?
It goes in front of a single judge.
Oh.
Yep. Welcome to the judicial system.
And who does the judge work for?
Well, that's right. Who selected this judge? Yeah. And this is another thing that I find so interesting because people
how's he been so far? Because he did eventually let you out, right?
Yeah. So the Romanian judicial system is effectively you have a tribunal judge, you have a singular judge, and then you go to an appeal. And the appeal, which is whether I win, if I win, they appeal. If they win, I appeal. So you always go to appeal, which has 3 judges. And they're all supposed to be randomly selected. I kept running into the same ones. Funny that.
Right.
But it's all supposed to be randomly selected. And they basically have the final call. There's no jury at all and anything. And they just decide everything. And this is what's interesting, that people at home are so ignorant that they believe that a case which is large enough, like look at your case. Your case and what happened to you and your people will affect the streets of New York. It'll affect 20 million people. You think they're going to leave that up to someone with a law degree? Do you think they're just going to leave it up to some guy with a gown who studied in a book? Or do you think they're going to say, you know what, there's 20 million lives at stake, so let's just do what has to be done to just fix this.
Right.
You know, that's how the system works. Yeah. I'm in the very lucky, fortunate position where my case affects the reputations of a nation. And they can say, oh, it's only Romania. Only Romania. Romania is the fastest growing economy in Europe. It's an EU nation state. It's not as poor as people think it is. You'll drive around and see Lamborghinis, Ferraris. You see penthouses. It's a real place. It's richer. Bucharest is richer than Madrid, Rome, Berlin.
Really?
Per capita. It's a real country. And their reputation's on the line. Do they leave that up to some judge? Just some judge fairly. Just some judge who read a book. Or does someone come along and go, you know what? Even if he didn't do it, just say guilty, just a couple years. We're going to look bad if he walks. Right. We're going to look bad if he walks. I mean, there's some people are naive enough to sit and go, no, those conversations don't happen. But those people haven't been in rooms like you and I have been. Because if you've been in the right rooms, you understand those are the exact conversations that happen. That's the whole world.
Exactly.
The whole world, it's really as simple as people walking into rooms and saying things. That's what government is. That's what education is. That's what the mob is. That's what a business is. It's people walking into rooms and saying, yeah, you do this, I'll do this, and what benefits us? We just talked earlier about how the elite establishment and how they make rules to benefit themselves. I would be flabbergasted. In fact, I would bet my life it is impossible that politicians in Romania have not sat down and go, how are we going to play this out? Because this has become a big mess.
100%.
Of course.
100%. All this backdoor stuff that goes on. You know, it's similar to Trump, one of Trump's cases. The guy's got so many, between criminal and civil. I've never seen anything like it. But, you know, he sat in a civil case where he was supposedly defrauded a bank, and the bankers got on the witness stand and said, he paid us every single penny.
Yep.
He paid us faster than the loan was due,
Yep.
and we would lend him money again.
Yep.
Lend him money again.
Yep.
And they actually filed a suit against the guy. He lost the case.
And what else happens in that?
Burn a saint and altar card in your hands, and you actually take an oath.
And what is that oath?
The oath is, if you violate what you know about this life, betray your brothers, you'll die and burn in hell. It's like Saint is burning in your hands. And do you accept that oath? And I said, yes, I did.
Did you meet him, Sinatra?
Many times, yeah.
What was he like?
Great. I mean, I enjoyed it.
Constantly be thinking, wherever you go, that somebody one day may tap you on the shoulder
It's
and exact what they would see as revenge for you breaking the code.
I know that that's a possibility, yes.
I mean, to me, it would be ridiculous to assume you hadn't. You can't be a mafia captain for that length of time, in charge of that number of people, and not kill people, can you?
Well, let me put it this way. You know, it's a violent life at times. And if you're part of the life, you're part of the violence. And yeah, as a captain, I was given an order, told what to do, I did it.
What do you think happened to him? There's two schools of thought. He hung himself, or he was murdered.
Not only did I spend time in that prison, I spent time on that tier.
Right.
Because I was in lockdown there. I mean, all those things happening at one time, the cameras are gone, the guards fell asleep. It doesn't happen. When I was in there, they were watching me 24/7.
This is what people don't understand. Your government, I've seen some examples of it. There's a few people, I can't remember the name. I'd love to remember the name, but there was a guy who lived on a farm and he was raided by the FBI in the 90s for an illegal firearm or something. And they killed his wife and all this insanity. I don't think people realize just how crazily dictatorial and evil a government can be. And it's a system. It's like a faceless system. You're grinding against this faceless system. And that's what's been also so interesting about my case, because I'm sure Trump has the same thing. I guarantee when Trump walks into that courtroom, the police officer who walks him in there is like, sorry. You know, like the judge may be against it, but everyone else involved in the whole thing are probably, maybe not in New York, I don't know. But in my circumstance, it was very interesting. The cops who arrested me were like, sorry, bro. Yeah. The guy's in jail, sorry. The guy taking me to court, sorry. The police officer driving around, sorry. It's just part of a system. They know it's a setup.
They know. That's why.
They know it's a setup. Yes. But it's part of everyone's a cog in this big, huge machine, and nobody can really save you. Yeah. And you're going in and out of jail, and every single person you meet shouldn't be here. I'm like, what? it's insane. I know. And yeah, well, you know. And it's crazy how dangerous it all is. And they're coming for Trump now. And this is the thing. You don't know the law, and the law is so ridiculously subjective. They can get anybody for anything at any time.
100%.
That's what people don't realize. That I have the most ignorant thing you can say is, well, just follow the law. Just follow what? You haven't read the law. How are you going to follow a book you've never read? You don't know what the law is. Yeah. And if they want you and they pick you up, you're going to learn very quickly that you've been breaking laws the whole time. Every single person, I guarantee there's nobody who's lived a full year inside of the United States who hasn't broken some law.
I don't think there's anybody that goes through a day without breaking something. There's so many laws on the books that are antiquated, but they're still there. They're still laws. Yeah. And they're ridiculous. If you ever read some of these statutes, you'd laugh. You'd say, no, this was probably 200 years ago, but it's still a law on the books.
That's right.
But you know, I tell you this, and people need to understand this. And I know this about you, Andrew, because I've been following closely. We're not ranting because we just, we're revolutionaries. We're not revolutionaries. We see something going wrong. Yep. We happen to care about people. Okay, care about our families, and we want to make it right. Yep. And that's the only thing, that's what this is all about. There's two things that you always have to worry about in a country, and it's happening in the United States big time. Number one, when the party in power starts weaponizing Department of Justice, the legal system, and law enforcement to go after their political enemies or the enemies that just don't agree with their ideology, and like yourself, we're vocal about it. Yep. That's very dangerous, number one. And number two, whenever the media goes along and doesn't report the news, but plays cover for the people in power.
Yeah.
Because then people don't really know what's going on. They don't know what's going on.
Yep.
And you look at social media. I've had, I can't tell you how many people, why are you sitting down with Andrew? I said, well, why is Andrew sitting down with me? I was a former gangster. He could say, I don't want to bother with you. I said, why do you ask such a dumb question? I tell him, we're sitting down because we're having a conversation because there's something there to be talked about. And what do you care what I'm sitting? I got to tell you, you know this too. Social media has exposed the lunacy in the world.
Absolutely.
There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
Some of the things you hear. The problem is people judge you from what they see or what they hear from someone else on social media.
Yep.
And it gets into their brain and you can't get it out.
And this is the ultimate position of the slave mind, because there are people who have a visceral reaction of anger towards me or towards you or towards anyone you can name. And they feel an emotion, right? And emotion's a real thing. Anger is a real thing. They'll feel a visceral emotion for a person they've never met based on an edited news segment from a propaganda organization. They're going to sit there and go, well, this propagandist has told me this, and now I feel rage towards this person I've never met. They haven't investigated anything. They haven't dived down the rabbit hole. They don't care. They just instantly comply and believe. If they can make you feel emotions with a short edited clip, well, then you are the enemy of freedom. You are the exact type of people they want, so they can play clips on the news, you get angry, and do whatever they tell you to do. You're the worst person in the world. And another thing that people just lack so much brain. If they were to come to me and say, Michael's got a new case, he's back on the streets, crime boss, they put it all over the news and tell you your past and you're a crime boss, and they say, look, here's an indictment. I'm gonna say, so wait, the police wrote this and the media wrote that. So I don't care about any of it. It's all a lie. It's all a scam because it's a one-sided story. People are gonna be full-grown adults and not understand that one-sided stories always end one way. You can't ask the media or the police anything about anybody. And then the scary thing about all of this is what we were talking about earlier. If you actually do a crime, like a bad, heinous thing, you rob a grandma, they seem to let you off. They don't seem to punish you like they used to.
No.
And that's a really big rabbit hole to go down as to why they're doing that and why they're trying to make society so unsafe. Perhaps it's because the only thing the human mind will accept a reduction in freedom for is safety. The only thing that will make you say, okay, take my freedom, but make me safe. So the worse things get, the more dangerous it becomes to leave your house, you might end up agreeing to being locked in your house. And okay, you deliver my food, you deliver my bugs, and I'll stay home because it's dangerous out there. That's the only thing we'll give up freedom for is safety.
You're right.
So that's why it's getting more and more crazy by the day. El Salvador, the president of El Salvador, has proved you can fix any mess. He cleaned it all up. Mm-hmm. Are there some innocent people in jail, like we were talking earlier about Romania, Japan, etc.? Probably. But he's fixed it. I don't know if you've ever watched his speeches?
No.
Oh, El Salvador went from the most dangerous country in the Western Hemisphere to the safest.
And what length of time?
A year and a half. He just turned up, built a mega prison, said if you have a tattoo or you're related to a gangster or you're in a house with a gangster, you're all going to jail. And he just locked up everyone, head to toe, everybody. And now it's the safest country. And he's saying now they're going through the judicial process. They're going to do some jail. And some people who are innocent are going to eventually get out. And everyone tells me that I violated human rights. That's fine. What about the human rights of the people who are getting murdered on the streets?
Right.
We had the highest homicide rate in the world. Everyone was dying. Everyone talks about human rights and the BBC and everyone wants to come along and ask me about human rights. I fix human rights because people can walk around with their children now. So he took drastic measures to get something done. I'm not saying America should do that, but I'm saying I'm sure with the monumental resource they have and the amount of time they spend going after Bitcoin millionaires like Roger Ver or in trying to convince the Romanian embassy to put me in jail for talking online or keeping an eye on every single person who's a Trump supporter, perhaps they could, I don't know, stop grandmas getting murdered if they wanted to.
All they need to do is go back to the way it was and enforce the law. That's it.
Yeah.
They don't have to do anything real drastic. They have to stop minimizing what they're doing now.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You get a guy in organized crime, and I have to keep going back to this. They'll investigate him for 10 years for shaking down somebody for some money.
Yeah.
Not beating them, just shaking them down. Or, for gambling that the government is running now anyway. So many of my friends went to jail for gambling, and the government is in the biggest business of gambling that there is.
Of course. Yeah.
All they have to do is enforce the laws the way they used to. They don't have to do anything drastic. That's it.
Yeah.
And they won't do it.
Yeah, they won't do it. And it has to be purposeful. And that's what's scary.
When I have to tell my daughters, I have to give them pepper spray to carry around. When I tell them, when you go into the parking lot, make sure you look around you because people are waiting, by your car to grab you and either kidnap you, human trafficking.
Yep.
That's real human trafficking.
100%.
When they throw you in the car and drive you away in your car. And that's happening in affluent neighborhoods in California, where I live. It's happening.
It's what's crazy about this? I think this is one of the reasons why they've been so determined to detriment the contribution of masculinity to society, because maybe I'm paranoid, maybe I'm crazy, but I think true masculinity, I see danger everywhere. If I walk from my car to the restaurant, my heart beats a little bit. Like if I get out of my car,
I'm the same way. I could totally relate to
I've got guards with guns. I've got security with me. I can't carry a weapon. I'm on bail, but I have 3 men with guns, and I still get out of the car. And I'm
the same way.
That's how I am. If you have that healthy degree of fear and protectivism inside of a society, inside of the societal mechanism for making laws, you're going to be a lot more careful about opening a border, a lot more careful about letting someone off and not giving them a cheap bail when they've done X amount of violent crime. You're going to be the kind of person who's like, no, safety first, we're going to protect this. But when you add in all this subjectivism and this garbage and this feminism and this racial, it's not his fault, or it's not her fault, or it's not this, they didn't do it, it's this, it's that, human rights, bunch of garbage, you're removing the masculine capability to just protect what it cares about. I think one of the largest smear campaigns against me is I get called hateful all the time. The BBC who hate me. The BBC hate me. They're the propaganda arm of the British government, and the British members of parliament stand around in parliament. It's the only time I watch those clowns. Mm-hmm. And they sit around talking about me. Andrew Tate's the worst thing that ever happened to this country. Not the stabbing, not the drugs, not the open borders. No, Andrew Tate said go to the gym. He's worth a 2-hour conversation. Only time I've watched them clowns in a long time. Mm-hmm. So the BBC is after me, right? And they say, Andrew, there's hateful ideologies. There's no such thing as a hateful ideology if you love something. You're not hateful if you say, I love America and I don't want those people to come here. You hate immigrants. No, I love America. Mm-hmm. There's no light without dark. There's no equal and opposite forces. If you love anything on the planet, you'll be called hateful against something else. The only people who aren't hateful are people who don't love anything and don't stand up for anything. The people who are just empty vessels waiting for the slave mine programming to convince them to be mad at us. Mm-hmm. If you love anything, you're a hateful person against something else. They'll call you hateful because they'll weaponize it and they'll try and take away the love aspect. I don't hate anybody or anything. I think it was with Piers when I said that my girlfriend doesn't work. It's like, why don't you want her to work? I said, she can work if she wants, but she doesn't have to. Why? Because I'm rich. Mm-hmm. You're a misogynist. How does it make me a misogynist? I'm a misogynist. She's in Chanel and get a facial. I love her and I take care of her. But that's it. No, I hate women now. This is how they spin the narrative. It's insane.
I'm going to tell you what's going on. There is a thought process out there now that if you're telling a man to be a man, and we can talk about the qualities of manhood, that it's demeaning to women.
Yeah.
And I said, no. If you're telling a man to be a man and teaching him how, that's a benefit to women.
Absolutely.
And they don't get it. People don't get it. It's like you're taking a woman's rights away by being her man.
Yeah.
Look, I'm married 39 years, yesterday actually, 39 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And my wife could work if she wants to. Yeah. Do I want her to? No, I don't want her to work. She doesn't have to work. I don't want her to work.
Yeah.
But if she wanted to and she's real, okay, you can work. She does all my video work, so she works for me.
Yeah.
I just don't want anybody else telling her what to do. That's just how I feel.
100%.
It's my wife.
Yeah.
I don't want another man or anybody else telling her what to do.
Yeah.
Okay, is that a misogynist? Most people would say yes.
Yeah.
But why?
There's a large proportion of the population who would try and say you're a bad person.
Yeah, why?
And they do this because they're pitting us against each other. That's why they're trying to attack masculinity to the point where they will say, if you're remotely masculine, you are harming and hurting women, which of course is false. But they try and keep the genders divided. That's what they want to do, because genders being united, when you're two different parts of a perfect whole, that's the basis of society in the first place. We can talk about government, we can talk about all these things, but it starts with a man loving a woman, having a child. And then they decide to buy a house. If they can buy a house, as opposed to what's currently happening because they can't afford any of them, if they can buy a house, they're now interested in the schools, they're interested in the roads, they're interested in the town. Mm-hmm. They'll go to the local county fair. The town can be extrapolated out to the state, to the city, to the government, etc. It starts with that. They've broken us at the nucleus of the cell. Men and women no longer get along because we have completely different ideas. And you can blame either gender, but truthfully, it's a race to the bottom for both genders, I think. Gender dynamics are now so fundamentally broken in Western societies that how can you build a society on the top of it? How can you build a society on the top of women who don't want to listen to their man ever? Men who don't want to marry a woman because she's either going to financially wreck him or he's not going to feel like the king of his own household, which is what a man wants. Why would you marry a woman who says, I'm not going to listen to you? Well, then why am I marrying you? What's the point in any of this now? You go down the rabbit hole of hedonistic insanity, this hedonistic sex and garbage. This is why we're in the position we're in the West, right? Because you can also tie that in with the broken gender dynamic, which you have. You tie that into the female empowerment telling them that they're better than men at everything. You also tie that into everything that happens to them as a man's fault somehow because they're permanent victims. And this is where you have all these fake rape charges and fake claims. How can this possibly be fixed when you have millions and millions of people having hedonistic empty sex on drugs and alcohol?
Right.
Telling the woman if they regret it at any point further on in their life, it's the man's fault. At the same time, she's better than the men in every single possible way. And these people are psyoped by Sex and the City and the internet and other garbage. Of course, they're going to have millions and millions of fake rape claims and fake kidnapping, all this garbage, all these crazy things. I said this to the mother of my child. I said, listen, I love my daughter with all my heart. If somebody hurts her, I'll go to jail. I don't care. I'll go to jail.
Of course.
But if my daughter comes to me and says, I was raped, what happened? I went out with a guy and I got drunk and I was drunk with him and I went to his house and we kept drinking and then I went in his bed drinking and I took my clothes off and then I had sex with him. But now I think because he ain't texting me, I don't want to. I'm like, I can't in good conscience kill this man. What do you want me to do now? And this subjective garbage has come by the basic breakdown of even gender dynamics now. So we have masculinity under attack on every single level. I said this to Tristan. Some guy, an old friend of mine, me and him were joking because since I got this human trafficking charge, I get all these beautiful women around the world saying, you can human traffic me. Like they send me messages. And he's like, oh, that must be fun. I was like, I don't meet anybody. I don't trust any of it because there's no longer even consent in the Western world for a man. If she gives you consent and can retract, then you never had it.
Right.
So you can't even have relations now if you're famous, really.
It's gotten to that point.
It's gone to that point where she can go, yeah, we're in love, we're doing that. And you can be together for 3 whole months and enjoy each other's company for 3 months and be together every single night. And then 2 years later, she can change her mind and retract all the consent. And okay, will you be found guilty or not? Well, that depends on the evidence in your phone and her phone.
Yeah.
But you're still going to need a lawyer. You're still going to go to court.
You're
still going to get
system.
arrested. You're going to be punished by the process. So you can't even have consent in the West in any regard anymore. So how can you even have familiar relationships when you can't even have consent? And that makes men of certain status extremely scared. I also think, this is a pretty elaborate conspiracy theory, but I'm interested in your thoughts. I think another reason the Western world is so riddled, the leadership, the elites, is so riddled with this insanity and this disgusting pedophilia and all these satanic rituals. Because I don't think in other countries they have the issues with the things we're talking about. If you're a Russian billionaire, you have your 4 girlfriends or whatever, and nobody cares. It is what it is. You're a rich guy, you have your girlfriends, that is what it is. We have these elites in Western world who know that they can't ever truly have consent from a woman or they don't want to be seen with a woman or whatever, and they go to these private meetings. What do we say? The world's just people going to rooms and talking to each other, and they say, hey, there's an island where you can have fun and nobody will know. And don't worry about the consent thing. We've got it under control. It's this island. You know, they're beautiful. They're younger. And they end up going down this rabbit hole because they don't have any, because society is now so broken. You can't even be a rich man and just have a girlfriend. You can't even have a girlfriend. They'll take your money. They'll wreck you. They'll come out in the press. They'll accuse you. You go to court. These have got to be linked, these two different scenarios.
I mean, they've schooled women to do that now.
Oh, yeah, to take men out.
Yeah, and you know, I have 5 daughters, Andrew, and I tell them, listen, okay, they're very independent, every single one of them, okay? But I tell them, listen, you get a guy, if number one, he can't support you, he can't protect you, and you don't look up to him like he's somebody special and respect him, what are you doing with him?
100%.
You know, now some people think, well, what do you mean? You know, I'm a woman, I can take care of myself. Well, yeah, you can take care of yourself, but that has nothing to do with what I just said.
Yeah.
You know, you want a man to be a man.
Yeah.
It's not demeaning to you. It's not saying that he's better than you. He's a man. He's different. He has a different role in life.
Absolutely.
And people can't accept it. That's misogyny. That's being misogynistic to certain people.
Oh, completely.
I don't have to rely on a man. Well, why not? What's wrong with that?
It's so interesting because I have sons and daughters, and they're being raised in such different ways. But my son is having a hard life because life's hard, right?
Right.
I walk past him. He's 3. I push him over. He gets up. It's like, that's life, son. One day you're going to go to jail. Get up. You know? But my daughters are princesses.
Right.
Like my daughter's 3 and she's saying, I only want to fly private and all this garbage, right? At 3. She's a nightmare. But I'm doing this on purpose because when she gets to a certain age, I'm going to say, look, the gravy train ends the second you get a man. Mm-hmm. So you've lived a very nice life. You have all the things you want and you have your bags and your cars and your private jets and you're very, very rich. But the second you get a boyfriend, the gravy train ends. If he can't pay for what you're used to, that's your decision. And you can't go back. You have to make a good call now because I'll take care of you until another man comes. Then it's his job. You better make sure he has my kind of budgets because you're used to a certain lifestyle. This is my plan.
I have the same thing, and she's standing right over there.
That's the plan.
Same thing.
Yeah, because the son is a completely different. You know, they're from different mothers, and it's kind of unfair because the mother of my son's like, if I had a girl, my life would be so much easier because they're on jets and stuff, and you're like, I don't want him on a jet. No, I don't want him on a jet. No, I don't want him on a jet. I want him to stand in line.
Right.
And it's amazing how different the upbringings between the two can be, and how my upbringing was. I often try and talk about how my dad raised me. And in the modern world, people will say, oh, that's crazy. That's abusive. He was nuts. I really believe I had the best dad on the planet. I don't regret a single time I had my ass whooped. I don't regret it ever. I probably deserved it. If I think back, I deserved it. And it's crazy to me that we built the whole world with discipline in children. We built the whole world with it. The pyramids were built when kids couldn't talk back to parents. The Napoleonic Wars, Mozart, the cathedrals, every single thing you see that was created less than 30 years ago, more than 30 years ago, was created with discipline in children. And now we're coming along saying, oh, you can't discipline a child. Oh, no, you can't tell them to be quiet and sit down. Right. My dad used to say this all the time. He had a saying. He said, I don't negotiate with children. He'd come in and he'd change the channel. I'd say, oh, Dad, I was watching that. I don't negotiate with children. We're not having a conversation. There's no negotiation. Be quiet or face the repercussion. I was like, yes, sir. Okay, then I guess I'm watching this. You know, so the world's gone nuts. And I was saying this the other day. I saw something on TV about mental illness because I think a lot of the mental illness is overprescribed. And I'm not talking about PTSD. And even when I got out of jail, I had nightmares. Romanian jail is a unique experience. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the overprescribed mental illnesses because every kid in the world has a mental illness now, right? And they're talking about OCD and ADHD, etc. And there was this kid who was walking down the stairs and he had OCD. And if he didn't walk down the stairs in a particular pattern, he'd like skip one stair, turn around, go up a stair, then do a hop and then do a jump, some weird stair thing. And his 2 parents standing there going, if he doesn't go down the stairs in a particular way and we put him in the car, he has a mental breakdown, he starts screaming, we have to turn the car around and let him go down the stairs and he has OCD. And the doctor's like, yeah, he has OCD and he's just medicine. Da-da. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, I've never seen an African kid walking for water 10 miles, turn around and do it again because they missed a step. Ever. This is not a disease. This is a brat with idiot parents who are enabling this kid. If that was my kid, I would drag his ass to the car and tell him to shut up. Right. And I'd fix it in a day. And we're sitting here with doctors, TV shows, pills. The kid, the world's lost its fucking mind.
Absolutely.
It's the same with ADHD. They say, oh, my kid can't concentrate. Well, I wonder why. Your child has video games, iPads. It's enjoying this very fun life. It goes to school and has to sit down with a boring book of math and doesn't want to. Well, duh. That's not ADHD. That's lack of discipline.
It's lack of discipline. Well, you said something very interesting that people wouldn't think would come out of your mouth because you're a misogynist.
Of course.
You just said you treat your daughters like a princess.
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's wrong with that?
Well, I guess they're going to come along and somehow the mothers don't have to work. So I guess that makes me a terrible person somehow. Yeah. I don't know. It's all this weaponized virtue. It's truly insane.
Yeah, and people people will turn that around to say that's demeaning to women because we're lowering their stature in life because we have to take care of them. Do you know, I can tell you this, since I'm married, I don't think my wife filled her car with gas 10 times, unless I was in jail. That's what I do all the time. I just want to fill her car with gas.
Absolutely.
Is she capable of doing it? Of course. Yep. Would she do it on her own? Of course. Yep. It's just, I'm a man, and I feel that these are the things that I have to do for the woman, for my wife.
Yep.
You know, I do it for my daughters too. What's wrong with that? But if you say that, you're a misogynist.
Oh, yeah. And they're trying to, and this is how they break down the gender role, and this is how they do it, because that's how they fundamentally break down society. And I was in Miami. Last time I was in America was 3 or 4 years ago. I was in Miami. I was with a friend of mine from Saudi Arabia, and we were in the club. And I was saying, we were talking about how there's no real clubs in Saudi Arabia. There's clubs in Miami, da-da-da-da-da. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, there's no clubs in Saudi Arabia, but there's wives. There's no wives here. And I just looked around and I was like, yeah, there's girls. There's no wives. You know, it's like, that's American society now.
Right.
That's the Western society. And it's going down this degradation. The thing I think a lot of people don't understand, and I have this especially because I come from a very low income background and I still know a lot of the people I grew up with. And when they go, if I had your kind of money, I'd do this, or if I had your kind of money, I'd do that. Hedonism is a black hole that never ends. You can only get so drunk so many times until you want to take a drug, and you do that so many times until you want to do both at the same time or whatever. You end up on a pedo island, whatever it is. Hedonism is a spiral to nowhere.
Right.
True happiness in life is actually doing, I believe, and this is where we can talk about masculinity. I feel happiest when I do the things I'm supposed to do because I'm supposed to do them. Just as you said, putting gas in the car. Putting gas in my woman's car will make me feel happier than doing something insane or garbage. Maybe I've become boring in my old age. I think I'm not quite as old as you, but I'm getting there. But now
You're half my age.
but like,
Don't rub it in, Andrew.
If I can clear all my emails,
Right.
I've had a good day. Like, maybe it's getting that way. I know when you're younger, you're a bit more reckless and these kind of things, but a lot of young people, a lot of men say to me, especially, like, what's fun? And I'm saying, doing what you're supposed to do and fulfilling your duty and being proud of yourself is fun. That's the only fun you need. You don't need the fun of trying to chase all this garbage and this hedonism and this black hole. That doesn't lead anywhere.
Did you do that for a while?
For a while, yeah, certainly.
So did I.
You have to.
Yeah.
Until you get to a point where you realize, okay, this is never going to end. Am I going to continue to go down this path, or am I going to turn around and just skip it all?
Right.
Because it only ends badly. And I think that's also one of the problems with Western society, where the youth are obsessed with fun. If you look at other societies, the youth are not so obsessed with what's fun today. What's fun now? I need fun now. I'm bored. I want fun. You know, they're overstimulated, whatever it is. They're also selfish. They're also self-obsessed with how they feel. This teaching a whole society and teaching a large contingent of the youth that how they feel plays paramount over the world. If you feel sad, that's all that matters. Not, well, I feel sad, but it doesn't matter because I'm doing the right thing. I feel depressed or I feel stressed, but it doesn't matter because I'm dedicating myself. No. What matters is how you feel right now, which means they only want to be happy all the time. And if you're going to only chase happiness and you don't have any particular skills, you're going to end up just chasing hedonism, and this is where you end up. And it's insanity. I think one of the largest tenets of masculinity for the largest period of human time is ignoring how you feel and doing what you're supposed to do because you're supposed to do it. We feel things, but jobs must be done, whether we are happy or sad. And this is also disappearing from the world. I'm stressed probably 6 days a week. I'm pissed off 6 days a week. But things need to be done.
Right.
So you just have to do them. And when you have a whole contingent of the youth obsessed with only being happy, I think this is one of the largest reasons they can psyop them so easily into doing insanity. And I guess it never used to be that way.
No, it was never that way. Without getting into the cause, I don't know if you know what's going on in the United States. A lot of protesting going on at universities.
Yep.
Without getting into the cause, these kids are protesting, okay, breaking into the building, staying there, and then demanding that food be brought into them,
of course,
blankets be brought into them. And I'm saying, are these kids so entitled that they think they can, protest and wreck the school for other people that can't get to class, and then they're demanding food and blankets and all these crazy things? I'm saying this world has gone upside down.
Yeah, it wouldn't last in most other places. And the closer that, it's actually interesting because I think humans, or maybe this is just me coping, maybe this is cope, but I think we're designed to struggle a bit, because the closer you are to struggle, the more sensible you are. And gender roles all fix themselves in struggle, right? If you have 10 men and 10 women and they crash on a deserted island, the men do the man stuff, the women do the woman stuff. There's no discussion about gender roles because you're going to die. So the men have to go hunting. The women are going to try and sew a blanket, whatever, because we're going to die now.
Right.
So we don't have time to talk about whose job's what.
Right.
Also, if you meet somebody who's had a hard life, they seem to be pretty wise.
Yes.
It's difficult to find someone who's had a hard life who's a total idiot. When you speak to these liberals or these morons, they've had very easy, soft lives. So I think humans are supposed to struggle a bit.
Absolutely.
And in the Western world, it's the age-old adage. I know it's overused, but hard times create good men create good times, and the good times create a bunch of weaklings, and they mess everything up.
Yeah, it goes to a point, and then it goes the opposite.
It goes the opposite way.
Yeah.
These people have had too easy lives for too long, and you can apply this to nearly any of the societal ills that apply to the Western world. People have had it too easy for too long, and none of them know any struggle at all. I mean, I don't know about you, to be honest with you. Like I can almost crash my car 10 times. And I only slow down when I hit the tree. That's just how I am. Like, I think that inside of the human psyche, sometimes you need to be shocked. You need to be hammered with something. That's just how it goes. Because until then, you're like, maybe I'll keep it in mind.
Yeah, well, I got away with it. You keep going.
Yeah. But when you finally learn your lesson, right? But there's a lot of these people out there who aren't being taught any lessons at all. And they're going to destroy society en masse because they have never had any kind of difficulty in their life. And what is life without difficulty in the first place? What is life? What is the point of life without difficulty? One of the things that's comforted me in all my garbage is actually, I watched one of your videos, and I was watching one of your videos a couple years ago, and I remembered it in jail. Because perhaps I'm wrong, you can correct me, but I don't think you regret any of the bad things that happened to you.
Not at all.
Because it makes you who you are.
Yeah, not at all.
So when people say, Andrew, what are you going to do if they lock you up for 10 years in Rahova, the worst jail in Europe? I'm going to say, well, that's going to be a story. Mm-hmm. That's going to be fun. Maybe I'm crazy.
Let me ask you, how much time are you facing if all this
8 to
nonsense
10?
goes down? 8 to 10.
8 to 10.
And what do you do on that? Yeah.
So 8 to 10 years in Romania, that'd probably be around 5 or 6 years. It's like 2/3. And Rahova jail is the worst jail in Europe. So
Heard that, yeah.
It's overpopulated. And Romanian jail is interesting because I wouldn't actually say it's as violent as a Western jail. Perhaps I'm wrong, but you see the Western jails is very race segregated, and there's drugs and there's violence.
State jails, yeah.
State jails. But Romania doesn't have that because everyone's Romanian. So there's not really a race problem. And they don't really have a problem with foreigners in general. And they know me and my brother inside out. So they know exactly who we are. And we're accepted as one of them. So that's not a problem. The problem with Romanian jail is two things. Is that one, there's a lot of mental illness because they don't have a segregation between mental illness and crime in poorer countries. The poorer a country is, the closer it is to your weird jail. They don't have time to deal with the other side of it all. It's very expensive and it's very complicated.
It's just jail.
It's just jail. Yeah.
You,
you did this, but you're mentally ill. I don't care. You did it, jail.
Right.
So you have a lot of mental illness, and then there's a lot of problem with just the general cleanliness. These jails were built in the communist era. They're infected with cockroaches. They've never been fumigated in any way. There's insects. There's bed bugs. It's filthy. This is the big problem with it, was the filth. If it wasn't so filthy, it wouldn't be so bad. But this was what bothered me the most, is finding cockroaches in your food and this kind of thing. But then if I had to choose, would I choose a more violent scenario to avoid the filth? I don't know. If you get stabbed, you're going to wish you didn't. I mean, I slept pretty good in there. People knew who I was, and people had a degree of respect.
Were you segregated most of the time? Your own cell? Or?
At the beginning, it was me and my brother. We were in separate cells with other people, but then eventually they put us in together because they tapped our cells. So they put us in together to try and find out and get us talking. And then it became a little bit easier. But I'm looking at 8 to 10 years, but maybe I'm nuts. Maybe I'm nuts. But in a world where everyone's chasing comfort and I'm chasing challenges, I really do think that would be it'll be a story. I mean, if I don't go to, I'm going to try my very best to not go to jail and I'm innocent. Fine, of course. And maybe this is cope. I'm just talking out loud so people can understand my thought process. If you were to ask me in 5 years from now, let's say I catch 3 years bid, or I don't. 5 years from now, what did you do? I flew around in private jets. I went to Italy. I went to Dubai. I drove my fast cars and blah, 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 blah. If I go to jail, the story's different. Maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts. But
the story's different, but I don't think you need to tell that one.
and I'm not wishing for it to happen.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to explain to people who don't understand why I'm not afraid. Because I know that retrospectively, I won't regret it. At the time, I may suffer. Right. I may suffer for a while afterwards. But I like to think, and I hope you can confirm this for me, that you wake up one day and you think back on it and go, yeah, I'm kind of glad that happened.
Yeah, well, honestly, I spent 29 months in solitary out of my 8 years.
Wow.
And it was probably the best thing that happened to me. Yeah, I mean that, Andrew. Best thing that happened to me, because things became very clear. When you're in isolation and you're alone, you can go either way. You could either go crazy, like I saw a lot of guys do, and I don't demean them, because isolation is tough. Those lights go out at night. Sometimes guys can't handle it. You saw a lot of bad stuff. I get it. It's tough. I'm dead set against isolation for young people. They're young. It's going to be tough for them to survive. But I came out of there a lot clearer on who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. And so that time worked for me. You got to make it work for you. You could go either way.
Of course.
And for me, it worked.
Yeah, and I guess perhaps that's just a general mindset in general. Like if life gives you lemons, make lemonade, right? I mean, there's two ways you can do it. I also think we're talking about the tenets of masculinity. I think one of the core tenets of masculinity, and me personally, I blame myself for everything. Everything's my fault. It's my fault. If I go to jail, even though I'm innocent, it's still my fault. I ran my mouth on the internet. It's my fault. I could have learned Romanian and defended myself better in court. I didn't. It's my fault.
I got to tell you something. I say this all the time. Okay, people ask me, Michael, what's some of your secrets? I said, some of my secrets. One of my main secrets is this: everything that goes wrong in my life, I take full responsibility for.
100%.
Because number one, if it was somebody else that did it, I should have known better. I should have seen it. I should have not let it happen. When you do, that's a man, Andrew. When you can take everything on yourself so that the next time you don't make it happen, it's such a benefit. And people don't get it. Oh, you know, this guy did me wrong. He did. Why did you let him do you wrong?
100%.
My fault. I should have seen it. I'm smart enough. I should have known this. I've been through this. If you always take responsibility yourself, you're 100% better in life.
You can't learn lessons if you're blaming everybody else for what happens to you.
Exactly. That's another thing I just cannot stand about our president. The guy never cops to anything. Everything is somebody else's fault. It's this, it's that. It wasn't my fault. I did everything right. These are all, I just can't take that in somebody. Even with my kids, my son. Well, Dad, it wasn't my fault. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Even if it wasn't, it's your fault.
Because that's how you learn and prevent it.
Right.
And if you have that mentality, it also makes you stronger mentally, I think, to deal with the difficult things in life. Because if you go to jail and you believe, and you were set up, and a lot of people have, and you're like, oh, the system's wrong, this is wrong, this person lied, I'm a victim, poor me. I don't think that's the right position of strength. I think I think you go into jail and go, okay, that's all garbage. Yes, it's a matrix attack, X, Y, Z. However, I could have done this, this, and this, and now it's my chance to do this, this, and this, so I don't waste the next few years of my life. And I'm going to come out and I'm going to do my very best to be the person I know I can be. And it gives you a degree of fearlessness. It gives you a degree of fearlessness. And that's probably one of the largest problems with society today, is that a lot of men have become cowards. They're afraid to talk. Even us, we talk, it gets us in trouble, right? But every time they mess with us, they damage themselves. One of the overviews, one of the contingents to holding power is that people have to trust you with it. Power, the only guarantee of power, someone said this to me once, and I keep saying it, I love it. The only guarantee of power is that one day you're going to lose it. If you have power over a woman and she listens to every word you say, one day she'll stop listening. Might be the same in the mob world. You control the streets. One day, you just don't control that street anymore. When you have power, people get power and they never think of this. The only guarantee of it is that one day it's going to be gone. And you have to prepare for that. And one of the quickest ways to lose power is when you can't be trusted with power. We give our governments and these institutions power because we trust them, right? The whole world is based on the trust of these systems. As soon as people stop trusting them, they can't do their job anymore. So every single time they do some two-tier policing garbage, every single time they attack somebody purely for their views, like Trump, like you, like I, we're like a poison frog, and they eat us. And they teach us a lesson, and we do some jail. That's fine. But they get a little bit of poison in them because they instill distrust amongst the populace. It gets to a point where once nobody trusts them at all, then it's over. Right? Nobody's going to sit there and go, oh, we'll go to court, or oh, I'll wait for court. Once everyone knows it's a scam, then it's done. So it's kind of like, how do you beat the matrix? How do you defeat the matrix? Well, I'm sitting here running my mouth. They put me in jail for it. I'm now currently on bail and have been told not to run my mouth. And I continue to run my mouth, and they'll probably put me in jail. And maybe I'm martyring myself, but you have to, it does damage them.
Do you have a gag order on you?
I don't have a gag order. I have no official gag order. However, my legal counsel was like, look, you should be careful what you say about Romanian jail and Romania, and you're inside Romania, and you should be very respectful. And I was like, oh, I am going to be respectful, but I'm also going to tell the truth. And they have to damage themselves to do what they're doing. And when people lose faith in these institutions, that's when they're going to have to come along and be honest again. Because right now, they don't have to be honest at all, because there's still a huge percentage of the population. You probably heard this saying, and it's a saying that angers me a lot. Why don't you get a lawyer? You ever hear that one? It's like, oh, I never thought of trying a lawyer. Oh, a lawyer. Oh, okay, I'll get a lawyer. And the law? Oh, fine. I'll go home. It's no problem. It's gone now. It's not how it works. It's not how it works. And once people realize that's not how it works en masse, then we're going to have to come into a new system, which I'm hoping we do, because the amount of dishonesty that we're operating under now is truly scary. And God's truth is light, and sunlight is a disinfectant. But it's actually kind of scary. I think this is one of the reasons why, as well, men are cowards. It's scary to wake up and realize that every single thing you're supposed to believe in is a scam. The educational system's a scam. The financial system's a scam. The judicial system's a scam. The medical system's a scam. All the wars we went to are scams. And when you start to realize, oh, this is all a lie, well, then you need bravery, right? So it's easier just to be an ostrich and stick your head in the sand. And then you're going to accept the slave programming because it makes you feel better. And that's just cowardice. And this is what I think we're suffering from massively.
We are. And you know, another problem, Andrew, I always said this. It's not strong people you have to worry about. It's weak people that all of a sudden get power. The weak people that get power and don't understand how to use it, and it puffs them up, and they think, okay, I'm God now. I'm Godzilla. I can do anything I want. And those are the people that you have to worry about.
It's like a drug they're not used to.
Exactly.
If you're a powerful person, you go through life and you've always been treated with a degree of respect, and you have a degree of respect back. But if you're the kind of person who's never been respected and you get some power, you're evil. You're evil. You literally become a psychopath. You're evil. You cannot trust weak people with power, absolutely. And that's what's so scary, because I guess in the hierarchies of old, up until very modern times, it would be extremely difficult for a weak person to obtain power.
No.
But now we have these hierarchies where everything's so messed up and turned on its head, where the only people in power are weak.
Well, that's it, because we have a generation of weak people that are now getting power. And that's the problem.
And also, when a weak man can be... See, anyone who does not understand that they're attacking Trump because he's a good guy has a mental deficiency. It's very simple. You don't have to agree with all of his policies. There's some things he says I don't personally agree with. Fine, who cares? Of course. You don't have to agree with everything. The point is, they're attacking him because he's on the good team. Because the reason they like weak people in power is because weak people can be intimidated and scared, which is why they want them to be in power. So when they go to these backdoor meetings, people walking into rooms and saying things, they comply with the true masters, and they work for the person they're supposed to work for, which is to globalize finance and not their contingency, not their constituency. That's what they want. So having weak leaders is dangerous, because weak people do the most evil, because they're too scared to stand
100%.
up. They're too scared to stand up and fight against evil. It's really interesting that the world is so brutally simple. And truthfully, a lot of it comes down to the capability, or at least the propensity, or at least a lack of fear of violence. I was having a conversation with a girl, and she was saying that, oh, men like wars, men go to wars. I was like, oh yeah, it's all men's fault. Men go to wars. Okay. You don't understand the world very much, but the world is war. Everything is war. And the reason you get to drive around in your little Mercedes and live in a peaceful society is because there's an underpinning of violence everywhere. Everyone understands that if they do certain things, eventually will end up in a violent scenario. If you speed on the highway and they give you a ticket and you don't pay the ticket, and they add more money and you don't pay it, and they tell you to go to court and you don't go, and then they come and say, come to go to court, and you say no, they'll come to arrest you and you say, I don't want to be arrested. And then eventually violence. We have all this paperwork on top, and we have all this nice facade, but when it gets down to it, it ends up in violence. It doesn't matter if it's the legal system or your life. I'm sure you try and talk to somebody and I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, it all ends up in violence. This is the underpinning. And when you have men who are afraid of violence, then they're always going to have the opinion they're told to have. They'll say 2 + 2 is 5. And if you say it's 4, we're going to fight. If you're scared of a fight, well, then 2 + 2 is 5. And a fight doesn't mean win.
It means fight.
Fight means fight.
Right.
I can't win when the police raid my house. I mean, I could try and win and get in a shootout and die if that would be beneficial to me in any way. But I'm not scared of getting my ass kicked. Maybe that's the difference. Come, put me in jail then. And if you have enough people who aren't scared of even just losing a fight, you can win the fight. But we have so many people who are scared of fighting at all. The number of people who were saying COVID, yeah, I know it's a scam, but why is there a but? You know that's it. You know it's a scam. That's the beginning and end to me. And I was perhaps, now I think back, I was perhaps too risky during that period because I was nuts from day one before we even knew it was a scam. I was ready. If it was real, I'd be dead. I'd be the first guy to have died. Number one, I go on a plane here in an empty airport on an empty plane, the last plane out of Romania, and flew to Sweden, which was wide open. They never closed nothing. And I'm running around Swedish nightclubs with champagne like an idiot. So if it was real, I'd be dead on the ground. I'd be the first dead guy. Luckily, it turned out to be a scam, so I looked like a genius. So perhaps I was too brave. Perhaps I should have waited a while. But for 3 years, they got away with that because a bunch of people were like, yeah, but I don't want to lose my job, or I don't want to get in trouble, or what if the police knock on my door, or what if? Let them. Let them show their hypocrisy. If enough of you stand up and make them, they can't arrest everybody. They can't do it to everybody. There has to come a point in society where you sit and say, we know this is garbage. And this is what's actually most scary about America now, because I think America this year is going to be telling it's going to go down in history as a pivotal point in America, in the empire of America, because empires rise and empires fall. They brutalized the January 6ers. They got wrecked in courts. They brutalized them.
There's people in jail now. They haven't even been charged yet.
Oh, yeah. You're a grandma.
They've been sitting in there for 3 years.
Yep, you're a grandma, and you turn up with a flag at your own Capitol building. You don't even go inside.
And you don't even hear about it because the news won't report it. There's people in jail there that haven't even been charged with a crime for 3 years.
Correct. They've been brutalized.
Did nothing.
Did nothing. And they're showing, if you try and complain when we rig an election, this is what's going to happen to you. Well, that to me shows intent to rig elections. Perhaps I'm crazy. That's a pretty logical explanation, pretty logical conclusion. And we're getting there now, and they're trying everything they can do. So what happens? This is what's going to be interesting. This is going to go down in future when they discuss societal reactions, right? Everybody knows if they rigged this election. Everybody knows if Trump doesn't win, it's rigged. They also know if you go on the street, you're in trouble. Are you going to do it?